Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. Sheil Kapadia here, joined with my friends Steven Ruiz and Diante Lee. It is the preview show, Week 8. You know what we do. We go over the biggest matchups of the week, and then we get into our picks contest. You know, I made the joke in the past that we might take over for the Ringer Wise Guys. I'm not going to give any spoilers. One of us actually might need to take over for somebody on the Ringer Wise Guys. So check that out in the second segment. Ruiz, how are we feeling about Week 8?
I'm feeling good, but not as comfortable as Diante looks in that theater setup again, man. I'm very envious. I like being in the studio, though. I will admit that.
Yeah, we have the live energy. Diante made his way back home a little bit earlier than us. But Diante, I'm with Ruiz. I don't know what kind of seating's going on there, where you're recording, but it makes me want to go take a nap, which is not good when I'm trying to do a podcast.
I'm envious of you guys being able to work in the studio, man. I had to try to up my production value to match what you guys got going on.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome to see everybody this week. We got Christopher Sutton producing in person, and we got Cory McConnell setting us up with video. I think Cory's been in the office 16 hours a day. I've recorded early, I've recorded late, and he's in on every one. So he might be we don't need to do these in-person ones as much anymore. But this is going to be fun. We're going to talk about the matchups of the week. We picked out 3. We're starting with a classic, just from my childhood, Cowboys at 49ers. And it's been a recent, not a classic, but a recent matchup that we've had eyes on, and a matchup we had eyes on, 20, 30 years ago as well. Diante, the 49ers go into this game at home, 4.5-point favorites against the Cowboys. Both teams feel a little unsettled at this point in the season, but not teams we're going to write off for the playoffs either. What do you have your eyes on in this matchup?
To me, it's whether or not the 49ers offense can beat man coverage, and then whether or not Dallas can play enough man coverage to make the 49ers offense uncomfortable. And a lot of this, I think, is going to tell us about what the season is going to look like for both of these teams going forward. Right. I don't want to say that for San Francisco, because they're hovering around 500, that this is a do or die week for them. But it's hard not to come out of the Chiefs game knowing that Brandon Ayuk is gone and knowing that they've had health issues throughout the year, not feeling like this is a game that they absolutely have to win. And not only do they need to win it, like I said, they need to have an answer for some of the things that have been giving them trouble, especially with teams playing tight coverage against Brock Purdy in this passing offense.
Yeah, I feel like this is a key game just because their bye's coming up. It's a week 9 bye smack dab in the middle of the year. I think it sets the tone of where the rest of the season goes. I think it informs the coaching staff where they need to improve. And I think the man coverage thing, Shanahan is answering questions about their inability to beat man coverage in press conferences this week. It's become a thing. It's not just us talking about it and looking at the splits. It's become a thing for them. And if you look at past years, it hasn't really been an issue, at least not to this extent. And I do think that's the key to not only this game, but to the rest of their season.
And who's going to be playing for the San Francisco 49ers? Deebo Samuel, we'll see. He had pneumonia. I didn't realize he was in the hospital a couple nights with that, but he was on the practice field. We'll see if he plays or not, if he's in a limited capacity. They lose Ayuk for the season. We know that. George Kittle is dealing with stuff. So is it like the rookie Ricky Pearsall? Is this a game where we say, okay, he's going to have, and he just came back last week. It's not like he's had a ton of reps. So I'm going to make a prediction. This is going to be a game where the Kyle Shanahan love affair gets rekindled. This is going to be a game where the film nerds and even the analytics nerds are all going to be saying, oh my gosh, Kyle Shanahan with this supporting cast cooked this Cowboys defense, because I don't think this Cowboys defense is good. And I thought they were going to be good coming into the season. They've had injuries. It looks like Micah Parsons probably won't play in this game, although that's not definitive. So check that out up until game time. But they just don't have the guys. Mike Zimmer does not have enough of a fastball to scheme around the weaknesses there. And I feel like Shanahan is good in this kind of spot where like you said, he's getting those questions.
Right.
He doesn't have his guys. I think he's going to be able to come up with stuff to beat this Cowboys defense.
Now, you've written about this. We've talked about it on the pod. They aren't running the Kyle Shanahan offense as we know it. Do you think they're going to get back to it? What is your theory behind that? Because Dallas doesn't play a lot of man coverage, but when they do play man coverage, if you take out the run snaps, because PFF charts coverages on run plays, they're pretty good against drop back passing when they're in man coverage. they're not good at defending the run when they play man coverage and they're playing single high. I wonder if Kyle kind of goes back to his roots and just pounds the football over and over and over again. I think that's the best way to approach this game, because I think if you come out and you have another pass-heavy script, you might fall into the same holes that you've fallen into the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We had that conversation on Sunday night, and then when I was digging into the numbers this week, they're actually still the fourth most run-heavy team on early downs in the entire NFL. They're not doing it well. So again, we said the year of the running back. I mean, since when does Kyle Shanahan have an offense that is 15th in DVOA running the ball, and he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey? So, Mason can put up those counting stats, but it just flat out hasn't been as efficient or as explosive as it was with a better back there. So yeah, that will be interesting. Is to say, hey, get back to your roots, play action, early downs. This defense isn't up for it. Like, he should. I know that he's not dealing with a lot of talent there on offense, but I don't know, Diante. That's just sometimes I just go with the gut. I like a number here and there, but sometimes I rely on the old gut, and I think that Shanahan's gonna have a big game here.
Well, if I was to walk that out for you a little bit further, I think if you're Kyle Shanahan, you go back to that early week matchup between the Saints and the Cowboys, and you look at how much trouble the Saints were able to cause this Cowboys defense, even when they had guys healthy, by putting multiple tight ends on the field, really trying to widen those edges and then getting downhill in the running game. I do think that this offensive line probably needs it. This is something that I know we've talked about on the podcast a bunch, right? Trying to live in this drop back world and having Brock Purdy be a superhero or have to scramble around has really put a lot of strain on the core of this offense. This would be a good week knowing that you're going to be limited at wide receiver. Instead of saying, hey, let's put our 5th, 6th, 7th wide receiver on the field in 11 personnel, to instead think about, let's get Kyle Juszczyk 45, 46 snaps on Sunday's game and allow them to really pound the ball downhill, use a lot of motion pre-snap to try to create angles in the run game, allow George Kittle to be the blocker that we know he can be when he's at his best. And maybe off of that, we end up seeing more of that kind of standard fare Kyle Shanahan offense where you get those under center play actions. And now it doesn't matter so much that you don't have a winning wide receiver against press coverage, because he's going to have more air to run into because defenses have to honor the run. So I think if you're going to script out what success would look like for them, that's probably closer to what it would be.
I feel like this is like a rare case for the Cowboys. And it kind of speaks to how bad things have gotten for the 49ers, or how disjointed things have gotten for the 49ers offense, that the Cowboys' dysfunction is almost the second story here, and that's never the case.
Yeah.
Especially for us. Like, we love content, and the Cowboys are content, basically. But I also agree with you. I think San Francisco wins this game. I don't think it's close, and I think the conversation, instead of about being Kyle Shanahan, is Kyle Shanahan back, I think it's going to be Mike McCarthy. Another egg laid on Sunday Night Football against this team, against this classic rival. And like, I don't know what the answer is for the Cowboys offense. It seems like they're running out of answers as we go and get deeper into the season.
As teams trade for Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins, and they're sitting there with CeeDee Lamb and not a lot else. You're right. It speaks to expectations, because I think we're like, hey, maybe the 49ers can turn things around. It sort of feels like from our conversation, we've probably given up on the Cowboys. I mean, they've had a tumultuous week. Troy Aikman's calling out their passing game designs and concepts and route concepts, and Jerry Jones is being asked about it, and he's like, yeah, Troy Aikman has, credibility. He's not wrong. He's usually fair. And Mike McCarthy is like poo-pooing it as the head coach. He's like, no, I don't put any stock into what he's saying. I mean, they're coming off a bye. The division is winnable. Jaden Daniels is injured. The Eagles don't look great. There should be reasons to be like, well, they're going to get Micah Parsons back eventually, but Diante, it's just hard to get there with the way they've played. I mean, they're 23rd in overall DVOA. They're 25th with a minus 42 point differential. They just flat out haven't been a good team so far this season.
Not just that, this is a bad week, I think, for this offense to try to find a rhythm. When you think about how the 49ers like to play, you're going to get a lot of split safety shells. And I think that for this team to get back in rhythm, it would require a perfect Dak Prescott game. And the thing that we've seen when these teams play each other is because San Francisco is so committed to keeping a roof over this offense, you get forced into these positions where Dak has to try high degree of difficulty throws. And that's where you get a Fred Warner interception or a forced fumble on a check down. That's where you get a safety getting underneath a dig route or a curl because there aren't any other throwing windows. So I think that not only is it that this team is falling apart because of its lack of health, I think to the point that we've been making throughout the season, the book on how to not necessarily control, but put this offense in distressing situations has been so clear over the last couple of seasons. I guess really like from the back half of last season up to this point. I think that the way you want to make this team uncomfortable falls right into the hands of what San Francisco wants to do defensively. And for San Francisco's defense, you're looking at this team and saying, finally, a week where we don't really have to worry about the run game because we know that Dallas is not moving bodies up front and gaining a lot of yards on the ground.
And when do we ever have the discussion about the 49ers offense about the Cowboys? Like, what I'm talking about is like, we're saying, oh, how are the 49ers going to approach this game? Are they going to go back to their old style? Are they going to run more drop back passing game? Are they going to run more play action? With McCarthy, it's kind of like he just runs the same offense, puts the same offense out there, and it never changes. There are no answers. And now we've kind of seen this happen with his offense with two different quarterbacks. We kind of talk about that. Like, for instance, we talk about Jalen Hurts. Oh, it's been two different offensive coordinators or three offensive coordinators, and he's still playing the same offense. With McCarthy, it's been two different quarterbacks, two separate styles of quarterbacks too, and the offense looks the same, and it devolves into the same mess that it has been this year.
It really feels like it's going right. We're having the same. If you would go back, what was their podcasting during the end of those Rodgers days? There was, right? In Green Bay. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah. No, it was like a couple of years ago. What am I say? It's the end of the week. Your boy's losing it.
Podcasts were invented in 2021, actually.
Was the Ringer? When did the Ringer get started? Yes, but it feels exactly like those conversations towards the end of the Aaron Rodgers era where he was not shy about, explaining how he felt that offense was operating. And now we're having those conversations because this has been an efficient offense before, but now it's not. And you're right. They don't have a plan B. They don't have a curveball.
And that's the true measure of an offense. Like any offense can get off to a hot start or like do well for a stretch. It's like when the defense adjusts, do you adjust? And we haven't seen an adjustment from McCarthy in Dallas, and we never saw one in Green Bay at the end of his tenure. And it's the same issues all over again. Like we can't beat tight coverage. We put too much on the quarterback to be perfect. We're not generating explosive plays that are easy to complete. I think a lot of us saw this coming. I'm not trying to like pat ourselves on the back. I think a lot of people questioned the Mike McCarthy hire when it happened, like a retread coach. And it's been everything we thought it would be in a bad way.
At the end, yes. I mean, and in the playoffs, it's weird because they win a lot of regular season games. They won 12 games, 3 straight years. It's like nothing to sneeze at. But yes, you could kind of see when this goes bad, how is it going to go bad? That part was certainly predictable, and of course, the lack of playoff success. That you can't write about this or talk about this era of Mike McCarthy without mentioning that. All right, Cowboys 49ers. That's going to be a fun one. That's going to be one that I would guess we would be talking about on our Sunday night show. Regardless of what happens in that football game, that's going to be one.
You should be able to, your picks are so bad in the B segment, you should be able to just predict what we're going to talk about.
There you go. Listen, 2-1 less. I'm just saying, okay? We're bouncing back. Sorry. It's a long season. All right, next game, the Buffalo Bills go to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, 3-point dogs at home. Ruiz, what are your eyes on?
I think this is a game that's going to show us not only Buffalo's floor, where Buffalo's floor is, because I think this is good competition, but not great competition. This isn't like, oh, if they win this game, I think they might be Super Bowl contenders, that type of game. And I also think we're going to see Seattle's ceiling, because I think they're starting to get healthier. They got some tackles back at practice this week. Their defensive front, which has been banged up for the last couple of weeks, is getting healthier. I don't know if Leonard Williams is going to play, but the other guys are going to come back. So I think we're going to see, for the first time since really like week 1, week 2, this Seattle roster at full strength or close to full strength. So I'm really interested to see, is this a playoff team or is it going to be a team that hovers around 500, which they've been for the last couple of years. The first year with Gino, they sneak into the wild card. Last year, they missed the playoffs, obviously. I think this is the year where we really figure out what this offense looks like, the ceiling for the offense. I don't want to say that for the defense because it's Mike McDonald's first year, still getting his guys in there. But I do think we're going to figure out if this is a real playoff team and a playoff contender that can win 1, maybe 2 games in the playoffs. And with Buffalo, I want to see them go up against a good quarterback, a good drop-back quarterback. Their pass rush hasn't been good. But the thing with Sean McDermott's defense has been for the last couple of years, it hasn't been good against good quarterbacks. It's been good against bad quarterbacks. It's been a bad quarterback defense. But this is a quarterback in Geno Smith who's going to test your coverage and the solidness of your coverage. He's going to hold on to the ball in the pocket. He's going to move around. even if you put pressure on the pocket, he's going to wait for routes to develop. He's going to go through his progression. So I think he's really going to test this Bills defense in a way that it hasn't been tested even against Baltimore, because against Baltimore, they just got ran all over. I think we're going to see the drop back pass defense and how good that is, because that's what they're going to need against Kansas City. That's what they're going to need against Cincinnati. Two teams they haven't been able to beat over the last couple of years.
Yeah, they're getting some guys back. They also had that DK Metcalf injury, though, so we'll see about that one. Whether he's able to play in this game, we don't know as we're recording this. I'm kind of buying into this Bills team a little bit, looking at it and what they've done so far and the trade for Amari Cooper, and he comes in right away and plays well. And I look at the defensive pieces and I feel like they have overachieved. It's not the most talented group. This was supposed to be kind of a reset year. They haven't been lights out. You're right. They've been up and down. It kind of depends on the strength of the opponent. I think they're going to play well. And I don't know why the games this week I have strong opinions about it. I feel like usually I'm I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's
because you're on the West Coast. You're optimistic. You need to get back to the East. We both need to get back to the East Coast and start hating on things.
Yeah, I think the Bills are going to play well in this game because Geno Smith was terrific last week. He was still pressured on 50% of his drop, and that was against the worst pass rush in the NFL, in the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Bills' pass rush is better than Atlanta's. I think they're going to get after the Seahawks offense quite a bit, especially if DK Metcalf isn't playing. And I don't trust this Seahawks defense against a Bills offense that has been mostly good this season anytime Josh Allen is healthy. So I like the Bills in this spot.
Yeah, and I was talking to Diante about this the other day, and he said, he thinks the Bills' offense is going to be the best offense over the second half of the year. So I'm interested to see, why are you feeling that way?
Wait, was this off the mic? I mean,
you weren't there.
You're using the good stuff off the mic, Diante. Come on, we could have led with that tape.
We have secret meetings away from you because your record in the picks is just not good enough. You got to be at least 500 to get into these meetings. I'm sorry.
All right, Diante.
That's a you problem.
So give us the take, Diante. You think this Bills offense is going to take off?
Yeah, Steven kind of laid it out, right? And I think the way I framed it then is that I just wouldn't be surprised if we look up from the point of this trade and see that Buffalo's been the best offense in the NFL by season's end after acquiring Amari Cooper. And we got a little bit of a look at it despite how ugly the game was to start last week against the Titans, right? They're able to push the ball down the field. You get in the red zone. One of the things that we talked about in the first 3 to 4 weeks was how effective Josh Allen was ripping balls in the seam, being able to beat tight coverage. And now you've got a great wide receiver that you can move around and kind of pick mismatches with. And then when you have that combination of both Cooper and Khalil Shakir available, now those two can kind of toggle between field stretcher and yak threat. And that's something that they haven't really had. And especially not in Stephon Diggs' absence. And even as he was kind of getting cold and being phased out of the offense last season before ultimately walking away, right? Or them parting ways. So to me, when I just look at that depth chart now with Amari Cooper in it, I think that just having that one piece that defenses have to respect out on the perimeter, or just somebody you have to identify, because Amari Cooper can work in the slot in this offense as well and be able to threaten the seam with skinny posts, with those dig routes. We're moving where you can get the ball on the move, on the run, and the same for Khalil Shakir. I just wouldn't be surprised when you look at that in combination with Ray Davis, James Cook when he's healthy, and that offensive line. There's an opportunity for them to be one of the most balanced attacks in the NFL. And I think that this is a good week for them to really put on film what it can look like against a Seahawks defense that has struggled at times giving up big plays in the run game, that struggled against Detroit with containing that play action passing game because of how many resources they had to commit to trying to stop the run. So healthy or not for Seattle, I think that this lines up a little poorly for them with the way that the Bills like to play. And like I said, this is a golden opportunity for Buffalo to really kind of plant their flag as a team that you have to take just as seriously as we've been talking about taking Baltimore in relation to Kansas City as well in the AFC race.
Maybe this is just a convenient take because it's the same player, but it kind of feels like Dallas's trade for Amari Cooper a couple years ago, where the offense was kind of having similar issues to what they're having now in Dallas, where they can't really beat tight man coverage and they don't have that intermediate threat to that go-to guy on 3rd and long. And then they trade for Amari Cooper and all of a sudden there were questions about Dak Prescott and his long-term viability in Dallas. And then you get Amari Cooper in there and the offense just explodes over the second half. I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
They make the playoffs and we haven't questioned Dak's ability since then.
Well, you haven't. Some people
No. Well, yeah. What his worth is, like whether he's worth $55 million, but no one's been like, oh, should they move on? Yeah. But I do think he could have that same effect because he gives them, like as Diante said, and I think it makes Shakir just a much better player because it kind of takes some stuff off his plate, lets him do other things that he's good at.
Now, I have a question here, Diante, because Ruiz kind of outed your take there. Now, we all have takes, bubbling in our heads. Sometimes you're saving that. We do a Sunday night show where we do a plant your flag segment. I mean, you might have been saving that Bills take for Sunday night. How do you feel? Are you okay with Ruiz kind of outing your take there?
I'm okay with it because in return, I'm going to just put the most blatant and egregious lie of a take on Ruiz sometime later in the year. I'm just going to keep my eye on something that I know is antithetical to everything that Ruiz believes about football. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that in his lap at some point in the season.
It's got to be realistic, though. You can't be like, oh, yeah, Brock Purdy is actually the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, the people will know.
I can't wait.
I feel like I'll give you a take behind the scenes that will fit that bill.
Okay.
Where you could just expose it on the pod, because I do have some takes. I know people think I'm like a hot take guy. I'm holding some takes back.
I can't even imagine.
Takes that
I can't even imagine. Oh my God.
I'm saving him for the Bill show because he's tapped me in for 2 hot take segments. I only have so many hot takes in me.
That's right. You were saving the take. You brought him out on the Bill Simmons podcast, and you nailed them both times. So you're saying, but then all right, we got to make sure we're saying on the record, off the record, have some journalistic integrity here with the takes behind the scenes. All right, we'll take a break here. We come back, one more game to get to, and then we have our picks for Week 8. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. We're like, what should be the third game this week? There's not an obvious one. We settled on Eagles-Bengals, just great for me because I can do one piece of prep for 2 podcasts. You got to be efficient here.
That's a vet. That's a seasoned vet right there.
I'm not going to mess around. So I've got Eagles-Bengals. I don't know that if this will be the most interesting thing to you guys, but I actually think it legitimately is this Eagles defense, is the Fangio effect real from what we've seen in recent weeks? Because I'm watching that game, the film of that game against the Giants, and I'm reminding myself against the Giants, they don't have Andrew Thomas, but it looked like a completely different defense than I saw earlier in the season in terms of playing zone and passing stuff off and communicating it and not getting confused by simple stuff there. They had 8 sacks in that game, and they did not rush more than 4 on a single snap. It was sim pressures. It was Nakobe Dean and dropping the edge defender. 2 straight games, they have not allowed a touchdown, that Eagles defense. And right now they're playing with this really old school, I don't even know what year we want to go to formula, where since they're bye, they're running the ball at a higher rate than almost any team in the NFL. And then they're just taking their one-on-one shots to A.J. Brown, and the defense has been really good. Well, that might work against Daniel Jones. That might work against Deshaun Watson. But now you got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, the margin for error for that defense. We know they're going to give up some stuff, but I'm very curious to see is what we've seen from this Eagles defense. Are they just on kind of the incline like we saw those Fangio defenses with the Dolphins last year where they started off slow and then they were getting really good and then they got injured, but you saw that improvement. Is that happening with this Eagles defense, Ruiz?
Yeah, I think this is a good offense to test it against. They were playing a lot of man coverage. I don't think you can play man coverage in this game against those 2 receivers.
Yeah, they've kind of switched it up. 2 weeks ago, they were heavy man, and then last week they were heavy zone. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they approach it here.
But I like your question because I do think if this is real in terms of like what we saw this Fangio defense a couple years ago when it was like the best defense in the NFL, it used to work against this offense in particular. Like Joe Burrow had a lot of struggles against Fangio tree coaches, like even the Chargers who didn't have a great defense under Brandon Staley, but the one time they played him, they kind of gave him some issues and got some interceptions against him. So I do think if we are getting the full Fangio defense in Philadelphia this year, we're going to see it in this game because you're going to have to throw different pitches at Joe Burrow. If you don't throw different pitches, you throw the same pitch over and over again, he's going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So I do agree that like that's the thing to watch in this game. And the other thing is Cincinnati's they're coming off their best run defensive game and it's sort of similar to the Philadelphia thing. They played Cleveland.
Yeah.
Maybe the easiest offense to play in the league right now outside of Carolina. So we're going to see, is this Bengals run defense better or do they just have an easier opponent? Because this run defense has to get better if this team's going to be a contender. And this, again, Saquon Barkley, an offense that's truly built around the running back right now, I would say, especially in the last couple of weeks, they're going to get a good test in that regard.
Diante, what do you think? Where are you with this Fangio defense, this Eagles defense going up against the Bengals?
Well, I think that last week was pretty illuminating, right? When you think about all the simulated pressures and playing a lot of quarters and quarter halves, I think that was probably the first week where you saw Fangio try to launch some of the more exotic pieces of this defense. Versus early in the season, I think it was a lot more kind of straightforward. Hey, if we're going to be in nickel, we're playing a lot of cover one or a lot of just like show too high, play too high, show single high, play single high. And you saw some of the issues that they had. And then I think around the Saints game, right, was the first time you start to see, okay, they can get opponent specific with game plans. We're going to get into these heavy 6-1 boxes to stop the run. And I think that since then, you've just seen maybe one more factor in this defense kind of get unveiled as the season has gone on. I think that this is a great week, to Steven's point, to try out those simulated pressures instead of leaving Nakobe Dean on an island the way that he was like against Tampa Bay. And you could just see the discomfort with him trying to be in coverage when Chris Godwin's in the slot. And when they're moving guys around and they're really threatening the seam, instead of leaving him in those situations, now you can have him trigger as a blitzer, as that fourth rusher, drop a guy out in the coverage that's on the line of scrimmage. And maybe you get that second of hesitation that allows you to play those split safety shells so you keep a roof over Jamar Chase. Steven knows, because he and I have talked about this a bunch. That wild card playoff game that Lamar didn't play in when the Ravens played the Bengals, you saw one of the best game plans, in my opinion, out of Baltimore's defense at that time. And it was a lot of what Vic Fangio likes to do in terms of simulated pressure, blitzing a backer, dropping off a defensive end, playing 3 deep or playing quarter half. And what they were able to do was keep the back end the protection. And now you have a numbers advantage everywhere you look, right? Now you don't have a linebacker that's being drained out in coverage because a back is running a choice route or fast out into the flat. That guy can give more body presence on those curls and those digs from Jamar Chase as an X receiver. Or now you can double a guy and you don't have to worry about being in disadvantageous positions, which are matchups underneath. So while I don't think personnel for personnel, right, you go body for body, Cincinnati clearly has a talent advantage. I do think the reason why you hire Vic Fangio is so that way when you land in these talent disadvantages, you have something schematically to kind of help, build you up and take away what that offense wants to do best. This will be the week where we get to see it most. And I do think we're going to see a lot of what we saw last week against New York in terms of those split safety shells, not playing a bunch of man and trying to use simulated and exotic pressure looks to try to confuse and maybe cause some hesitation from Joe Burrow.
I do want to see how Philly's offense looks. This hasn't been a good Bengals defense yet, but Lou Anarumo is going to have a game plan tailored specifically to this offense, which sounds like something every defensive coach should have, but that's just not how the league works. Like, there are game plan coaches, there are coaches who just have their scheme and we're going to outplay you. We're going to have our fundamentals down. But with an offense like Philly, where there are clear limitations and they can only do a couple things, but they do them really well, it's going to be interesting to see how Anarumo kind of zeroes in on those things and forces them to play left-handed. And then, can they play left-handed? What if they take away the deep balls outside to A.J. Brown? What if they take away the run game? We've seen Cincinnati sell out to take away run games. Kind of worked against Baltimore until the end when the defense got tired. But I do wonder, is this going to be a game where Philadelphia takes a step back on offense, or is it going to be a game where they take a step forward? And I think that's going to dictate ultimately how this offense looks for the rest of the year, or how we feel about it at least.
Yeah, I feel like I've had so many conversations with people this week about the Eagles offense, and someone was like, I know it's not just, run the ball a lot and take shots to the outside. It's more complicated than that. I'm like, no, it's really not more It's not more complicated than that. I mean, that has been the offense. Jalen Hurts might have had his worst game of the season last week, and he didn't turn the ball over, and they won by 25. So it was like, but it was not a good game. The turn downs have always been a big part of his game, Ruiz. You've talked about that before. These were from concepts that have been in this isn't new to Kellen Moore. This is right. Mesh that they've run probably more than almost any other passing concept since he's been there, and should be very simple reads, and the ball's got to come out. And he wasn't doing it, and he was throwing he dropped back to pass 21 times, and 7 plays resulted in a sack or a scramble. That is not not a sustainable passing offense. And so I'm with you. Any hope for an Eagles fan that, hey, Kellen Moore is going to come in and the offense is going to look different? The passing game right now is, I don't want to say as bad. They've had answers to the blitz. They're using more motion. Other than that, a lot of stuff looks the same as it did last year. And I'm with you. If you take those two things away, and the Bengals, by the way, have allowed the fewest plays of 20-plus yards in the NFL this season. So if you take away those explosive plays, and you don't have to be perfect against the run, but if you're going to be a run-heavy team, like you got to be explosives, or you can't make any mistakes, no false starts, no penalties, that kind of thing. It's a hard way to play, is what I'm trying to say.
And I think Anarumo, Big Lou, as we like to call him, or what do you call him?
Captain Lou, I think.
Captain Lou.
Who was like
Captain Lou.
Not a thing. Not a thing at all. The only person on earth that calls him that. But no, I think one thing he really does well is when a quarterback is kind of weird in the pocket. Like, I don't know the term to use because he's done it against Mahomes, who's certainly not bad in the pocket like Jalen Hurts might be, but he can definitely use that to his advantage by like rushing three, forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball. Because I think the longer Jalen Hurts holds on to the ball, the more likely you are to see a turnover. I think he's a better quarterback when he gets the ball and he just throws that go ball immediately. If he has to hold on to the ball, I don't think it's going to look pretty. And I think that's what Anarumo's goal is going to be for this game, to make it a Jalen Hurts game and to make it look like it looked last week. Just the offense will be better and they'll support them a little more than the Giants offense did.
Yeah, it's going to be a good what can we learn type game. Eagles offense, Bengals, really all four units, honestly. You can look at it because they both played the same two teams the last 2 weeks, the Giants and the Browns. And so you're looking at going, I don't know, what is this?
Every unit is on fraud watch in this game.
Yeah. And we might be praising one. We might be ripping three. Who knows?
We're on fraud watch. So let's just put us all on fraud watch.
I don't need to be. I am a fraud. Yeah, I don't need to be on watch. That ship has sailed. All right. Let's take a break. We come back and we will do our picks for week 8. All right, we are back on the Ringer NFL show. Here's what we do. We make 3 picks every week. Anything, props, totals, whatever, sides, whatever you want to do, just has to be minus 120 or better odds. Whoever loses the previous week gets assigned the slop game of the week. That means they've got to watch the worst game as determined by the other 2 hosts of the week and talk about it on Sunday if it comes up here. So what happened in week 7? Ruiz, you can see he's got a little pep in his step, taking some shots at me. That's because he went 3-0. The guy's on fire. 3-0. Diante, you and I both went 2-1 here. Now,
imagine getting a pick wrong. I just can't. Yeah. I can't fathom it.
One day it'll happen to you. We'll see. As a group, 7-2. I'm the weak link in the group project, but I'm going to continue to point that out there. The slop game of the week. I swear in our shared Google Doc, our friend Dan Comer at one point assigned Diante the slop game of the week. I don't see those words in the doc anymore. Diante, who gets the slop game of the week? Me or you? Did you pay off Comer? What's going on here?
I don't know what you're talking about. I think Comer knows that it's time to cash in on me making good early in the season. I told him I'm going to milk that for all it's worth, giving away my slop game of the week earlier this year.
Should I get the pick?
You know what? Comer just typed in the doc. This is live. This is amazing. This hasn't happened before. Live updates to the doc during the show. He wrote in parentheses, Steven decides. So there you go. Ruiz, you get to decide.
I want to hear an argument from you two.
I mean, listen. I don't have a great argument.
All right, then you're watching the game. Right, you are watching Bo Nix versus Bryce Young, so I don't have to watch this.
Is that what
crap.
I get? Broncos, Panthers?
Yeah.
All right.
The worst game of the week. The Panthers' point differential is minus 133.
Yeah.
The next worst team is the Patriots at minus 76. It's almost doubly bad as the Patriots. This team is exceptionally bad. Yeah. It's hard to watch it. And guess what? It's getting worse because Bryce Young's starting.
And Bo Nix and the Broncos are 10.5-point favorites in a football game in October.
I forget who said it. Someone said, well, the only way they can go is up from here. Yeah. That's not true. They're 29th in offensive EPA. They can go down even
further.
They could sink to 32nd. And the best way to do that, play the 5'9" quarterback.
Something to shoot for. There you go. For the Carolina
Keep
Panthers.
pounding.
Against the Broncos defense that has been very good, by the way, so far this season. All right. I'll have, half an eye, a quarter of an eye on Broncos Panthers.
I want a full report.
I'll be honest. If you ask me about this game on Sunday night, I'll probably just make something up. And I might be right because I don't think it's going to be that hard to predict.
Fine.
I only have so many resources. We don't have a bye for some reason.
No,
in week 8?
No.
How am I supposed to keep track of all? And you want me to watch Broncos Panthers?
That's on you. That's on you.
Might happen.
That's where my pick is from that game. So should we just
Let's
start
go.
there?
Let's get into let me get the season records out so you can make fun of me some more. I'm 10-11. Ruiz is 14-7. Diante is 12-9. I mean, I've made the joke about us replacing the Ringer Wise guys. Ruiz is actually going to have to replace a Ringer Wise guy. I don't know if it's going to be process of elimination, if they want to decide, is it Raheem, is it House, is it JJ? I know DeBundo's sometimes on that. I think it should be, what's it called, relegation. Whoever has the worst record has to sit here next week. You go on Ringer Wise guys, and we'll just do that the rest of the season.
Well, then where do we send Sheil? If they get relegated, where are we going to send Sheil?
Oh, listen, if I need to take a couple shows off and just chill, I mean, I don't want to do it, but if I need to do it, I'll take one for the team. Okay, I'll agree. I'll agree to that. I'm 10-11. Yep, you're 12-9. Diante as a group, 36-27. I'm saying that's pretty good. All right, Ruiz, you've got a prop from Broncos Panthers. What is this even going to be?
It's not even a prop. It's just the line straight up. I'm taking the Broncos. They are laying 10.5 points. Bo Nix is laying 10.5 points, and I'm going to lay the points. I'm going to bet on Bo because this is the worst possible matchup for Bryce Young to be stepping back into the lineup with. This Broncos defense, led by Vance Joseph, they overwhelm quarterbacks in a way that no other team outside of Minnesota has overwhelmed quarterbacks, just with constant pressure, just big dudes collapsing the pocket. And when you have a quarterback like Bryce who struggles, he gets lost in the pocket. It almost looks like a guy who's getting swept away by a tidal wave when he's getting an all-out blitz. And I think he's gonna get hit with a lot of tidal waves in this game. He's just gonna keep getting back up. I don't know. I think it's gonna get ugly. I think it's really going to get ugly, and I think they're going to be turnovers, and that's why I'm confident that Bo Nix will be able to give me enough points to cover the spread. Give me 20 points. If I get 20 points from Bo, I think he covers the spread.
Diante, if I would have told you in late August that we're going to do a picks contest and Ruiz would get his chance at any bet on the board in week 8, and he would be taking the Bo Nix, Sean Payton Broncos to cover a 10.5 point spread, what would your reaction have been?
I think that taking any pick that's not for the Broncos, that's not Broncos under something, is a sign of
your reaction would have been, oh, I guess they're playing the Panthers this week. I guess they're playing Bryce Young this week.
But I'm with him. I mean, this is the worst game for Bryce Young to be stepping back into. We've seen what Vance Joseph has been doing to veteran quarterbacks so far this season, sending a bunch of pressure, causing issues for Baker Mayfield, obviously caused a bunch of issues for Aaron Rodgers, even though the weather played a bit of a factor in that as well. I think that even if Bo Nix is bad, chances are we're going to end up with a strip sack or, a poorly thrown pick to Patrick Surtain that turns into a pick six, because this is just such an awful matchup for Bryce Young to be in the pocket behind an offensive line that's been struggling. They don't really have anything that they can lean on outside of what we saw maybe in terms of like that dead cat bounce game after they initially benched him. We have not seen any offensive rhythm for them outside of that game versus the Bengals all year. And I think that this is probably going to be another step in a long line towards a number 1 overall pick again.
And every time they do something well on offense, it's like Andy Dalton making like a miraculous throw. It's like, oh, I didn't know Andy Dalton could still do that. The sad part is Andy Dalton has to do that for this team to just be viable on offense. And Bryce Young doesn't even have that in him. So I don't know what success looks like for Carolina on Sunday. I know what the opposite of success looks like, and I think that's what we're going to see.
I can't believe how much time we spent on Broncos Panthers. Amazing. The upset of week 8 has already occurred. 10.5. But it's going to be, listen, now it is a reason for me to watch. I'll watch with both eyes on Sunday to see if they're covering that spread. All right, Diante, what do you have? What's your first bet?
So my first one is for Jordan Love playing up against the Jaguars defense. I've got him going for 275 passing yards or more, which is plus 144 on the odds. What I just think about when you look at what he's played like, and we talked a lot about taking those high degree of difficulty throws, trying to work the ball in the tight windows. I actually think that this is a game where you can look across the field and see a lot of advantageous one-on-one matchups for his wide receivers, and knowing how much man you're going to see from Ryan Nielsen's Jacksonville defense. And the only other thing that they play on passing downs has really been cover two. And to me, what we see from Jordan Love is that willingness to push the ball down the field. I don't know if it's going to be a flawless, 280, 300-yard passing game. We may still get one of those awful picks that just seems to be a part of the Jordan Love experience. But I do think that you're going to see him push the ball downfield in the same way we did against Houston. And I think that this is going to be a really good week for us to see, again, what Green Bay's ceiling can be offensively.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that because my next pick is from that game.
I've got one too. All right, Packers, Jags. What do you got?
I'm going to go Dontavian Wicks anytime touchdown score plus 270. So I'm playing the game a little. I'm really trying to test my record.
This guy's smelling himself a little bit. Diante. I don't know. Plus 270.
This is Steph Curry like turning around before the ball goes in, but Wicks is the man coverage guy for this offense. It's kind of hard to figure out who's going to be the receiver this week that gets the targets. But so far, 37% target rate against man coverage. Nobody's even close on the team. It's like not even within 15 percentage points of Wicks. The question is he going to catch the passes that come his way? That's been an issue all season. But I think they will. I think he will. And I think, like Diante alluded to, Jordan Love's going to test those windows. He's going to try, and I think he's going to test those windows in the red zone. Hopefully Wicks comes down with one of those balls, but I think he will score in this game, and I think it's going to be a big target game for him at least.
Yeah, just anecdotally in my head, I'm like, every time Jordan Love is throwing one up for grabs in those situations, it feels like it's to Dontavian Wicks there. You know what? I'm not going to go with this game right now. I might come back to it. I'm deciding in my head. I'm in my own head, but I'm going to move to another game for my first pick. I'm going to... Where do the Commanders play? What's the town
FedEx
called?
Field, Landover, Maryland.
Landover, Maryland. FedEx Field. The Washington Commanders host the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to have a tough time Sunday night if Marcus Mariota plays well in this game. I'm just telling you, I have a lot invested in Marcus Mariota sucking in this game and being a fraud and being the guy. I'm being a little mean. Marcus Mariota, you might be a nice guy. I don't think Marcus Mariota is going to be able to put together another game that's remotely close to the one he put up last week against the Carolina Panthers. And right now, we don't know for sure that Jaden Daniels isn't playing. It seems like Jaden Daniels isn't going to play in this game. It's going to be Mariota against the Chicago Bears defense that has been very good for most of the season. They've got some injuries in the secondary, but they do a good job just limiting points against their opponents. They don't give up 20 points, it feels like, anytime, regardless of who they play. I think this Bears defense will put the clamps down on Marcus Mariota. And my take that, no, it's not Kingsbury coming up with some quarterback-proof system all of a sudden because he went to Thailand and figured out how to do it. That's not going to be the story out of this game. The story out of this game is going to be they need Jaden Daniels back because this offense can't function at even a competent level with Marcus Mariota on the field. So you'll probably be rooting against my take there.
I definitely will be. I got to root for my own takes. Of course I am. I'm rooting for myself to look dumb. But
if you're Marcus Mariota, I can't imagine a bigger delta in like execution of a game plan between the Panthers defense and the Bears defense, right? Even when guys are missing, and we saw this when the Bears played the Jags in London, right? Missing guys banged up. You still saw them execute at a very high level on the back end. Even though they don't have high-level pass rushers, you're going to see some discomfort from Marcus Mariota in the pocket. I don't think that those spins out of sacks and those bails out of the back door of the pocket are going to work as well this week as it did last week against a Carolina team that is struggling, to say the least. So I would not be surprised if this ends up being the Marcus Mariota that we saw in Atlanta and at Tennessee and basically every other stop in his NFL career since he's been in the league.
I just realized that I got so fired up. Did I even tell you what my pick is?
No. Does FanDuel have odds on Marcus Mariota sucking?
No, unfortunately, there are no Marcus Mariota props. Trust me, Ruiz saw me scanning my computer trying to find him a couple hours ago. Those aren't out yet, I guess, because it's not official. I'm just taking the Bears, -2.5 against the Commanders. I think the Bears win this football game. The Bears have a tough schedule. We've talked about that before. According to the betting markets, the toughest remaining schedule in the NFL. But they get a break here, potentially, likely, if they don't have to go up against Jaden Daniels and go up against Mariota. So, yes, Bears -2.5 is my official pick. All right, Ruiz, what do you got? No, you've given us two, right?
I've given you two.
All right, Diante, you're up then. Give us your second one.
So my next one is taking Houston, who was a 5.5-point favorite at -106 odds against the Colts. I'm not sure if anybody is really paying close attention to how poorly Anthony Richardson has been playing. especially last week. But if you look just over the course of the season, of the 48 quarterbacks with 100 or more dropbacks, when he's pressured, he's 43rd out of those quarterbacks in EPA on throws. And I mean, you can just pull up the tape, man, zone, pressured, clean pocket. He's sailing passes in a way that we have not, that I guess you could say we were always afraid of in his game. But I think that we saw enough big play production, especially like in that first game against Houston, where it would have been okay to look past it. We're not seeing that same kind of explosive production in the passing game, which is really laying bare just how often his inaccuracies bring this offense to a halt. And that's not to say that he can't be good. That's not to say that he'll never be accurate. It's not to say that he can't get better or that the highs aren't as high as people say that they are, because they certainly can be. And this is an exciting offense when they're able to push the ball downfield effectively. But on a down and down basis, those inaccuracies are going to get you hurt. And to me, against the DeMeco Ryans defense, this comes back to the conversation we were just having about Marcus Mariota, who doesn't have the arm talent of an Anthony Richardson, but still has some accuracy issues and some anticipation issues. I do think there's going to be some trouble for this offense if Anthony Richardson is inaccurate again in the way that we've seen in film in his last few starts.
What's your level of concern, Ruiz? With is this like, well, this is kind of what I expected to see, or is it a little bit past that where you're going, well, you know, I thought it might look a little bit different by this point?
I'm not too concerned.
Okay.
Like I think he'll have a decent game in this one. Like I share all the same concerns that Diante is laying out. Like he has to throw the ball more accurately, but the other facets of his game that I kind of fell in love with are still there and still on tape. Like the ability to avoid sacks is still there. It's still at a high level. He should have been sacked at least like 3 more times against the Dolphins and got out of those sacks. But this is a tough defense to go up against. And we saw it in week 1 that they can take advantage of a quarterback who kind of is reckless. I don't know if reckless is the right word. It's boom or bust, I think is the best way to put it. But I think Steichen is going to learn from that game, and I think it's going to be a big rushing game for Anthony Richardson. And I think they're going to lean into that and make him the focal point of the game plan as a runner. And hopefully, I think from Indianapolis's perspective, will make the passing parts a little bit easier, where he's not thinking so much. Maybe he's not dealing with as much pressure as he did in the first game. But no, there are concerns, of course. But I'm just of the mind that the talent is just there, and bad quarterbacks don't do some of the things he does in the pocket. I've never seen a bad quarterback navigate pressure the way he does. The misses are there. I've seen plenty of good quarterbacks miss easy throws. I saw Josh Allen do it for the first 2 years of his career. And like, I know you can't bank on him developing like Josh Allen did, but he has the talent. There are only a handful of quarterbacks who can match Josh Allen's talent, and he happens to be one of them. And he might be more physically talented than even Allen was. So I think you have to give him a long leash if you are like the Colts. I would not be starting or even thinking about starting Joe Flacco as long as Richardson's healthy. You have to see this guy play. You have to let him play, let him learn how to play, let him learn how to play through mistakes, because he's going to make them. It's about mitigating those mistakes and coaching around them. I have confidence that Steichen's going to be able to do that. I think the Texans are going to win this game, but I think Indianapolis will cover, and I think Richardson won't have a disaster game.
Yeah, this year is about reps for him. The guy has not played a lot of football, and so you're okay with the ups and downs. It's kind of supposed to look like that. We talked about that in the preseason, that the C.J. Strouds of the world are few and far between.
Yeah.
Most rookie seasons, you're going to be having conversations like this about a guy going into Week 8. I know it's been a big talking point reading the Colts coverage this week, how much to use him in the run game. Are you worried about? I just feel like that has to be part, especially right now, it has to be part of the package with him, and he's too dynamic. He's too good at it, where it's just like, if you don't have that, maybe at some point you'll be like, we don't need to lean on that as much, but right now that's got to be part of the package.
Yeah, and the injury concerns to me are kind of strange to talk about, because they did happen on running plays. Okay, but like the first one happened, he was scoring a touchdown and kind of got slammed into the end zone on a play where he scored. The last one, he just took a weird hit to the hip, it seemed like, on a scramble. He was trying to get down. So I don't even know if like calling him injury prone or thinking that increasing his rushing attempts is going to lead to more injuries. I don't even think that's the right way to look at it. And we've heard this coaching staff say, we're not going to stop using him as a runner. That's his superpower. Or that's part of his superpowers. And if you do that, you're limiting him. And then he doesn't he's not a viable quarterback that you can play right now, because he can't hit easy throws.
Right, yeah. If he's going to go 10 for 24 and can't run, then what, you got no shot to win games there. All right, I'm going to do this one for the content. We haven't talked about this game. Jets at Patriots. and I'm going to do a little zag here and go Breece Hall under 109.5 rushing and receiving.
Is this a Belichick Mayo thing?
I think this is a hanging out with Anthony DeBundo a lot this week, and listening to all the sharps do this, and you got to zag when the public's doing. We love DeBundo, but so maybe that got into my head because I feel like everyone's got to be taking Breece Hall overs this week, right? I mean, with the way the Jaguars ran the football against the Patriots last week, and it is a little bit of a belt. I think. I don't know. Isn't there a scenario? I feel like the Patriots are actually a very interesting team this week because they've had a tumultuous week where Mayo says we played soft, and then Belichick comes out on 7 different interviews and says they're not soft. And we talked about this. Yeah, well, it's easier to stop the run when you have Christian Barmore, Bill. You left out that little detail about why the run defense was much better last year than it is this year. But there has been weird stuff with Mayo. Like if you told me, Sheil, you're wrong, Mayo's a train wreck and he's going to be one and done and this season's going to be terrible, I would believe that. But I also feel like people are jumping the gun a little bit. Like there's a scenario where there are players in that locker room who are like, we like him. We want to play for him. We didn't do a good job. Like, man, he's taking a lot of heat this week. And there's sort of a rally togetherness type thing. And it's not like you're going up against a juggernaut. You're going up against the New York Jets. So maybe they come together a little bit and play a little bit better Diante than people are anticipating.
Yeah, I think, and to me, I mean, if you're looking at Gerard Mayo, I think that this is a perfect time to take on that bunker mentality, right? If you really want to start to identify who you are as a head coach, I do think that, maybe Bill Belichick kind of gave you that alley-oop a little bit, taking the pot shots in the media where you can go on and really say like, hey, let's bunker down. Let's figure out who we are defensively. I think that some of the criticism is fair from Bill's perspective, not necessarily calling them soft, but saying that some of these guys were available and on the field when they played good run defense in years past. And I think that this would be a good week for them to really load up the box against the Jets offense that we know is going to want to take those quick game chances anytime they can. And I think that for them, for the Patriots, because they play so much tight coverage on the perimeter, you probably do want to show those loaded boxes, play tight coverage, and try to play the variance game with this Jets offense because they have not demonstrated the fact that they can push the ball down the field and really hurt you in the drop back game.
Ruiz, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a point of emphasis for this team. Obviously, if Mayo kind of said it in the press conference, it's something he's thinking about, and I would assume it's something he's going to work on in practice. They're going to be focused on playing physical, especially against the run game, and this is not like a well-designed run game. I know they've changed offensive coordinators, but there's only so much you can change in the heat of a season. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think I would go against the public, too, here if they're
all right. Breece Hall under 109.5 rushing and receiving yards is my second one. All right, let's get to our third and final ones. Ruiz, what do you got?
Yeah, I stole this stat from Dan Comer.
Okay.
So if I get this wrong, it's his fault, and it doesn't go on my record.
Wow.
I get the W if it hits, but I don't get the L if it loses. But no, he
all this team building and camaraderie this week, and my gosh, just throwing Comer under the bus. Unbelievable.
He's in the room with us,
what
too.
was this
Exposing
week
my
for?
takes, throwing Comer under the bus.
It was a great stat. I'm giving him a shout out for a great stat, and also throwing him under the bus if it doesn't play out. But he let me know that NFC South games, they're averaging the highest combined points of any interdivision games.
I thought he was just speculating.
No, we looked it up on True Media.
Right.
Yeah, 60 points combined, over 30 points. So I'm going to hit the over in the Atlanta-Tampa Bay game. It's 45.5. I think that number has been dragged down because of the injuries to the Bucs receivers. But I don't think that's going to be an issue for Liam Cohen, at least not in this game. In this matchup, I think Atlanta's defense is, you can attack this defense, you can hit it in the flats, which is where Tampa Bay has had a lot of success this season. And throwing those quick passes out, I don't know if it's going to be running backs, if it's going to be the receivers. I don't think they're going to rely on a lot of downfield passes like we've seen with Godwin and Mike Evans. It's going to look a little different, but I do think they're going to have success. And I like a smart quarterback up against a Todd Bowles defense. Those guys usually are able to figure out where the blitzes are coming from. Now, if Atlanta's line can't pick them up, I don't have any confidence in Kirk Cousins.
He just cooked him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and he just cooked him a few weeks
yeah.
ago. But I don't have any confidence in him moving, but I don't think he's going to have to move. I think he's going to see the blitz coming. He's going to be able to get rid of the ball. He's not going to have to hold on to it. That's when we've seen the worst of Kirk Cousins this season. I don't think we're going to see that against a Todd Bowles defense. I could see this game getting into the 30s again, and it doesn't even have to hit the over in this number. or in this game?
I think the Falcons are going to do their part to get this number over. I do have some concerns about Tampa Bay because a lot of that offense that was being generated from behind the line of scrimmage was Chris Godwin just being a freak of nature, creating after the catch, making guys miss, and finding explosive offense on targets that were close to the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. So I do have some concerns in that respect. And then just in general, this is going to be one of the only times that we're going to see Baker Mayfield in this offense without his full complement of offensive playmakers. And we've been talking about this throughout the week. This is something we've been talking about throughout the season with how good Tampa Bay has looked offensively at times, is that so much of this, I think, has been about Baker Mayfield having things taken off his plate. And I think that Liam Coleman has done a great job as a play caller, getting him high efficiency throws where guys can go get yards after the catch. This could be a good day for like a Bucky Irving out of the backfield in the screen game on swing passes, things that are fast out to the flat. So I'm with Ruiz in that respect. But I think a lot of that effectiveness came from the fact that teams had to respect that Mike Evans could be anywhere on the field and that Chris Godwin is a yak threat. And you were just able to pry open all these easy throwing windows. And even with that said, we've seen over the last few weeks, Baker Mayfield start to fall right back into the same lack of sack avoidance that has dogged him throughout his career and putting the ball in harm's way as well. This could definitely be a bad game, I think, for Tampa Bay. So I do think that Atlanta's going to score because Kirk Cousins is a smart quarterback against the Todd Bowles defense. And we've seen over the last few weeks, save for the Seahawks game, him distribute the ball well. I just don't know if you're going to get enough offense from Tampa Bay to kind of justify taking the over here.
Yeah, this was a questionable pick, Comer. You really went out on a limb with this one. No, but just give me 20 points. I just need 20 points. The Andy Dalton Panthers scored 20 points on the Falcons, so I just need 20 points from Baker Mayfield. I think he can get that for me. Yeah, I don't ask for much.
I will. Liam Cohen will deserve credit if they come out and have, because Baker Mayfield with this supporting cast, like Diante was pointing to, I know it's not the best defense, but still, that's tough. Your two best wide receivers, and it's not like another team's two best wide receivers. These guys were doing all the heavy lifting for this offense. It's pretty much, the best wide receiver duo, or certainly top 3, top 5 in the NFL. And now you don't have them for this game. Can you be competitive? Can you put up those points?
I've seen people complain about Mike Evans like dropping passes. He has dropped some passes, like
it's
some
his
deep
whole
passes.
career, and then he
makes like the most amazing catches.
Yeah, give me a break.
He can afford to drop a few passes.
Who's doing that? Who's making fun of Mike at this point in his career?
Baker Mayfield supporters.
Okay. That's me. Come on.
Some of the most dastardly people on earth, in my opinion.
There you go. All right, Diante. So yours was over 45.5.
That's right.
Falcons box. All right, Diante, what do you got? What's your last one?
So my last one, I wanted so badly to be able to take the Browns under of 17.5, but it's just outside of our threshold. So I'm going to go Baltimore as an 8.5 point favorite, minus 115. I think that this is just absolute hell for Jameis Winston to be dropped in as a starter. Likely not having Jedrick Wills as a starter. DeJuan Jones, who has been an issue anytime he's been in the lineup for Cleveland. He was obviously a problem at the end of the Raiders game, giving up a big sack to Deshaun Watson at that time. And it's not only the fact that you're going to be going into a game without your starting left tackle in Jedrick Wills. You just traded away the number one receiver in this offense to Buffalo and Amari Cooper. So you're not going to have a lot of downfield throwing options. And if there's one thing we know about Jameis Winston, is that when he has doubts, he wants to push it and be aggressive. I do think that this is an opportunity for Baltimore's defense to kind of have a get right game, a feel good game where you can get after the quarterback with your pass rush, and you shouldn't be as threatened deep down the field as we've seen in prior weeks. And I would say outside of like some garbage time throws late on Monday night, we saw a better coverage unit on a down-to-down basis, I thought, against the Bucs. Obviously, guys getting hurt played a little bit of a part in that, but I think they were playing better on a down-to-down basis and forcing turnovers, and there's nobody who's going to give you a better opportunity to get your hands on the ball than Jameis Winston on Sunday. So I think this will be another really good game for Baltimore to kind of run it up and maybe blow Cleveland out right now.
I do think they're facing a quarterback who's going to test that deep coverage. Like that's been kind of the weakness for them, giving up explosive plays. If there's any quarterback that's going to test that, it's Jameis Winston. I don't know. I think this could be a little test for the secondary. They are, in my opinion, they're facing a better quarterback this week.
Yeah, Jameis Winston, Ken Dorsey taking over the play calling duties from It's a weird spot.
No reaction to that take. I just said Jameis Winston was better than Baker Mayfield, and you just
I thought you were saying.
I meant Baker
I thought he was
Mayfield.
talking about Deshaun. I mean, there's nothing to debate on that part.
You think Jameis Winston is better than Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, we're gonna see it. Don't worry. Just give it time. Give it take time. Let it simmer.
Well, I'm not going to see. Now you're trying to trap me because now if I go on a thing, I'm not defending Baker Mayfield the week before he has to play without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So nice try.
I'm really good at backing you into it.
There's absolutely nothing to be gained in arguing Jameis Winston versus
that social
Baker
clip
Mayfield.
ain't happening. Yeah, Diante, I'm learning my lesson.
I made you a Purdy guy. I'm going to make you a Baker guy by then.
That's not happening. All right, I'm going to do the old go back to one of the games we already talked about picks because listen. I'm a desperate man. I want to pick a one that I feel strongly about. And I'm going Joe Burrow under 257.5 passing yards. I think it's a high number with the way Eagles corners Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay have both been playing really well. That Eagles defense has been the most unlucky defense in terms of takeaways of any defense through 7 weeks since 2000. I mean, they've had Mitchell's had his hands on the football a lot, but they're not getting any takeaways. But overall, in success rate, I think they're all the way up to 11. So I think that's going to be a low-scoring game that's going to come down to the last 2 minutes. Someone's going to have the ball. Eagles offense, Bengals offense with a chance to drive for a field goal. But I just don't think Joe Burrow's going to pile up a lot of passing yards down the field in this game. So I've got Burrow under 257.5 passing yards against the Eagles. So there you go. Those are our picks for Week 8. Do you want to repeat them? Do you remember them? I'm trying to remember mine. All right, go ahead, Ruiz. Give us your recap of your picks.
Denver minus 10.5 over Carolina. Over 45.5 in Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Dontavian Wicks anytime touchdown score plus 270.
Plus odds. Diante, what do you got?
For me, I've got Jordan Love going over 275 passing yards, which is plus odds of 144. Texans covering 5.5 points, and Ravens covering 8.5 points against the Browns.
All right, so I'm the only one without the plus odds. So if it's a tie, I lose again, and I probably am watching the Panthers if they don't have a bye in Week 9, if they don't get relegated in Week 9. My three are Joe Burrow, under 257.5 passing yards, Bears, minus 2.5 against the Washington Commanders, and Breece Hall under 109.5 rushing and receiving yards against the New England Patriots. All right, those are the picks for Week 8 on the Ringer NFL show. We will, of course, be back Sunday night to talk about all that. I feel like there's some juicy storylines. I feel like that's going to be a pretty fired up Sunday night post-game pod, so be sure to check that out. Appreciate Stephen Ruiz, Diante Lee. Thank you to Christopher Sutton for producing these shows as we've been in person this week. Thank you to Cory McConnell for doing the video work, setting us up, making us look good there. You can watch these shows, of course, on youtube.com on the Ringer NFL show. And of course, Dan Comer, even though Ruiz threw him under the bus, he's doing a lot of great work for us on the show. All right, appreciate everyone. It's been a fun week. We'll be back Sunday night for the post-games pod, whatever it is. I have no more words to say. See everyone on Sunday night on the Ringer NFL show.